Welcome to Denver Theory Lab.
Denver Theory Lab? Okay.
Denver Theory Lab. Let's do it.
Welcome to Denver Theory Lab. This is Jesse.
And I'm Kyle.
Where we aim to investigate and explore theoretical and practical ideas, conspiracies, events, and practices from an objective point of view to expand our range of thinking. To support us, you guys can make donations to Denver Theory Lab on PayPal at Denver Theory Lab, and you can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, or email us at denvertheorylab@gmail.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or suggestions.
A lot of fun ones on the list for this week, and just a lot of stuff going on in the news this week. It's been, as it has been for some time. It feels like a lot of time passes in just 1 week if you're judging it by the headlines, it would seem. But I think all that's really happened this week is the folks at the federal government are trying everything they can to figure out how do we get them to quit talking about Epstein? What in the world can we do to make them quit talking about that? Troops come into the streets of D.C. and maybe more cities, New York City, L.A., Chicago. There's talk of it.
Yeah, so explain to me exactly what happened today. I saw in the news Trump was trying to get rid of the slums, he said, and initiate federal police, which I guess is the National Guard, which is basically martial law. Is that what actually happened, or am I interpreting that incorrectly?
Yeah, he's preparing to activate the National Guard in D.C., and it's announced that that's what he plans to do in D.C., and the administration is claiming is that the police and the local government in Washington, D.C. are failing to do their job and keep the city safe. They're pointing at local crime statistics there in D.C. of a rise in some violent crimes. So, but statistics can be manipulated. Anytime any group or government wants to get their way, you can always pay for the right statistics to show exactly what you want. So it's definitely, not sitting well with a whole lot of people. I haven't seen really anyone supporting this since the news has come out. I've only seen critics and people taking caution of saying, hey, this appears to be a really dangerous move. And I can't wrap my mind around what they want to achieve. We don't live in D.C., but I would imagine that the problems they see there are similar to what we see in every other American city. And the biggest problem is all the homeless drug addicts, and people who it's really an economic problem more than anything else. So I don't see how bringing the military out could possibly help, but it'll definitely give people something to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Distraction. It's always look at the right hand instead of the left hand kind of thing.
Yeah. I want to hope that's what they're doing here. Otherwise, we're just rolling out fascism,
Yeah. Nothing new on the Epstein?
So I saw there was a report of one of her former prison mates at the Florida prison claims that Ghislaine has dirt on Trump, is what they're saying, and she's now officially moved to the new Texas facility, which is, from everything I could find, was unheard of to move someone convicted of the crime she's convicted of to a prison camp where, the camp they have her at is it seems like they have a lot of high profile people. Elizabeth Holmes, the woman who was behind the DNA genetics company for years back. There was a big scam. She scammed a bunch of rich people.
yeah.
And her father, Elizabeth Holmes' father, I want to say it's her father or it's a very, very close relative I know, worked for Enron, so it seems like they're just a family of con artists and a family of, or not just, I'm sorry, not a family, but a prison filled with high-profile elite criminals, or wealthy criminals, where they seem to have it pretty nice and relaxed at this prison. I don't think most of us would ever go there if we committed a crime, a similar crime, or a lesser crime.
Is the same one Martha Stewart went to?
I wonder. I wouldn't be surprised.
At minimum security vacation prison? What'd she go to prison for? Wasn't it
It was
insider trading? Or
yeah, insider trading.
And nobody batted an eye at that. They're just like, yep, that happened.
Yeah, from what I understand, what Martha Stewart did was like relatively not too bad. I guess a lot of people do it. Yeah, so they're at she's at a prison in Bryan, Texas, that is sometimes referred to as Club Fed.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a very swanky
Federal
place
prison.
there. Yeah, Club Fed.
Martha Stewart served her 5-month term in 2004 at federal prison camp Alderson, West Virginia.
Low security women's facility, nicknamed Camp Cupcake. Man,
That's fitting.
gotta love the names of the nicknames of the prisons where they send these people. You got Club Fed, Camp Cupcake. Doesn't sound too bad. Oh, the Central Texas inmates disgusted by Ghislaine Maxwell's arrival. You don't say.
Think she's getting beat up and
I doubt it. I really doubt it. If she was lower profile sort of person, probably she'd have. You always hear the horrible things that happen in prison for, especially in a male prison where people are going to enforce their own justice there for some of the criminals. But somebody like her with the connection she has, I would imagine she's probably got people already paid off or who are in her corner, or someone's paid off people to be in her corner. The fact that she is still breathing tells me that, there's some important people who want to see her still breathing. Otherwise, she would have had an accident by now or wouldn't still be around. She can threaten too many high-profile people,
So another headline I saw the other day, World Health Organization was just granted greater authority over national policy. While public attention was elsewhere, representatives from 173 countries voted to significantly expand the authority of the World Health Organization over national health policies, border decisions, and personal freedoms. Under these new agreements, when the World Health Organization declares a global health emergency, it will no longer need to seek approval from individual governments to enforce its directives. Your nation has already committed to following their lead. This could include border shutdowns, lockdowns, max vaccination efforts, digital health ID systems, all potentially initiated by unelected figures such as World Health Organization, Dr. General Tedros, or influential private actors like Bill Gates without any democratic input from the citizens who will be most affected. It also says this isn't just about public health, it's about centralized control, top-down governance, and the erosion of national sovereignty in the name of safety. Be alert, the next emergency may be just a signature away.
So on that one, I have good news, actually. And I remember hearing about this, that unless they have a new one, this one is a treaty that the World Health Organization and their supporters were pushing that most of the countries of the world ratified. And if we would have ratified it, it gives the World Health Organization the power to declare a health emergency, international health emergency. And they get to set the criteria. So it's, the World Health Organization who gets to say this constitutes a global health emergency, a global pandemic. and would give them the power to institute lockdowns and other life-saving rules, is what they described it, But the concern there, of course, is, well, they can say anything's an emergency, and it's giving them all these sweeping powers. And who's to say they're not just trying to enrich the pharmaceutical companies and the vaccine makers, and forcing people to buy their products,
Right.
or forcing governments to buy their products. And before the election, America was set to approve this treaty. But since the election, if I'm not mistaken, we are currently on course. We're going through a year-long process of leaving the World Health Organization.
Oh.
Which, I'm sure there's some people who probably feel that that's not a great idea. Personally, I'm a fan. Let's I don't think we need a World Health Organization. The only World Health Organization we would need is one to deliver actual health care to people, or to deliver some health benefits to people. But just to have an organization to exert more control and telling countries and individuals what to do, I can't see much good that comes from them, without them actually providing health care. So, but come January 22nd, 2026, America will be out of the World Health Organization.
Okay. Well, hopefully that's good news.
Hopefully.
I'm sure a lot of people will spin that differently, but yeah, maybe we aren't looking at it from all the right angles either. Hard to say. I guess World Health Organization should only be giving us recommendations, if you ask me, rather than have, judiciary power over.
I would agree. And even when given recommendations, it's hard for me to see a need for having a World Health Organization. If anything, the real good they could affect is by having doctors and medical institutions talk to one another, work together to try to find cures for diseases or cures for illnesses, medical innovations. But other than that,
What about the zombie apocalypse?
right? Well, I think it's probably more likely that the World Health Organization will be responsible for causing a zombie apocalypse. I think when you get these big organizations like this and you centralize power and you dangle more power in front of these people, I think it's way more likely that the World Health Organization creates a pandemic or creates a world health emergency than they are to help us prevent one.
Yeah.
Organizations like that, it's like the old saying, war is the health of the state. And if war is the health of the state when it comes to a government, well, if all your organization is a World Health Organization, and we think we need you because you're going to save us when it comes to our health, then maybe you need an emergency to show us your value.
That's true. A hero isn't a hero without a villain.
Right.
Or just a regular guy.
And if everything's going good, who needs the World Health Organization?
That's true. Another headline I found was student claims all presidents are related except one. And
who was that? Who was that one? Was it I remember seeing this. The kid who did this, who took the time to do it. They were doing Obama's term, I believe.
Yeah, even Obama was related somehow.
Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren is the only one who can't trace their lineage back to King John of England, because Van Buren was Dutch.
Oh, yeah. But most family trees only trace the men's lineage, I guess, and she traced both men and women's lineage to the tree, and somehow they're all distantly related. I mean, I guess we all are related to one another.
If we go back far enough.
We all know everybody within 7 degrees, so
right.
Why wouldn't we all be related somehow?
So, and
it doesn't say if it was by marriage too, if any of them were not blood related.
And they did that back when Trump I'm sorry, when Obama was president. So I just asked Google's AI to see if is Trump related to the other presidents, and it's not really sure, but it says he may. It looks like there's no one who's done the research to show that he is related, but that doesn't mean that he's
That's
not.
because nobody wants to be related to him.
Yeah, probably. Right there.
They don't want to find out if they are.
Well, I was I was thinking it's possible he could not be related to them all as well, because his family came over, in the 1800s, or German immigrants who came over. I guess with German Scottish heritage. So being that he came over so late and with the German roots, he could not be related to the rest of them who can trace their lineage back to colonial times in America.
Oh, let's talk. We had a suggested topic from our friend Brian P., I will say, for anonymity purposes. You know who you are. Giant Rock of Landers, California. It's kind of a local attraction there. I guess he lived not too far away from there when he was younger. And there's some interesting lore that goes with it and some interesting people that came of it. What'd you find?
So the main guy associated with it, of this George Van Tassel, he was the most fascinating person I could find with it. But I mean, the rock itself is pretty incredible. I was just trying to ask, the internet to see, is this the largest boulder in the world? And I guess it's contested. There's a couple other really big rocks out there, but the rock is huge. It's just massive. It's like a rock. I guess makes me think of like red rocks or something. Just this big boulder. If you could put other stones with it, but big enough to.
It
could
just
be
a large separated rock. It's not attached to any mountain or anything. It looks like it rolled off of a giant mountain, I guess.
So, and one thing I found about it is apparently in the early 2000s, it split. So a lot of the locals and people who were, and maybe that's the difference in these pictures they're seeing. Maybe this is after the split. It's a lot of its followers who live out there with it, and especially the people who were into the more metaphysical. They felt that the fracture was because of some changing of energies with the year 2000 coming in and the beginning of a new age on Earth. But at the same time, one might say, hey, it looks like in these old pictures, it looks like you guys held campfires and all the heat went up to this one part of the rock.
Yeah.
Right where it fractured. So they could have broke because of that. But beyond the break, this George Van Tassel, he hung out there for a long while. Looks like there was some guy who built a home under it.
Frank Kritzer in the 1930s, prospector, moved to Giant Rock and carved out a living space beneath the boulder using dynamite, it says.
Yeah, and then this years later, George Van Tassel comes along, and he's really big into UFOs and big into the esoteric, and he is going down there. I guess he's renting out, or somehow he's acquired the space under the rock, or acquired access to it. And he's going down there and doing meditation groups and studies and that sort of thing. And then he claims that beings from Venus visited him while he was under the rock, and they gave him instructions to build. I'm forgetting the name of the structure he built, but he claimed that this structure that he was building, and is still standing today.
Integratron, I think.
Yeah, the Integratron. Yeah, and he was hosting a meditation group in the 1950s in a room underneath the giant rock. But in this Integratron was supposed to be able to extend human life, be an anti-gravity device, a structure for scientific research into time, and supposedly built partially upon the research of Nikola Tesla and Georges I can't say his name, Lakhovsky. I might have mispronounced his name. And unfortunately, Mr. Van Tassel did not live to see his work completed. Some controversy surrounding his death, as he was known to be very healthy, but at the age of 67, he died, and his death is listed as being caused by a heart attack. His body was cremated before his family was advised of his death. So that,
That's suspicious.
yeah, that's to say the least. Let's burn this body before anybody can get a look at it. And then, according to Van Tassel's widow, government agents ransacked their home and confiscated his papers and equipment while she was attending the funeral. So, I think it's safe to say he was on to something. And this structure he built, the Integratron, is still out there in Landers, California. So you can still go to it. And now, I guess, different people own it, and they use it for sound therapy. And people do
sound baths.
Yeah, people claim that it gives good health benefits, and they feel better and that sort of thing.
Supposedly it's very popular, like 6-month waiting list, and celebrities will go. And
hey, being that he didn't even get to live to see it finish, and given that this place has changed hands a number of times since then, I would bet it's not even its current construction doesn't match his original specifications. It's probably close, but probably definitely doesn't have all his original specifications, And so if people are getting benefits from it, are noticing any sort of weird energy from it, and it just makes me wonder, what would it be like if we could see his work actually completed?
what does this apartment look like underneath the rock, I wonder? Like, how was he living?
Well, I think he had a group down there, too.
How was Franz living? I guess Franz supposedly was a German, and they thought he was a spy. So they came after him at one point and eventually gunned him down.
Doesn't look bad from this picture. If that's inside
It
the rock,
actually looks quite nice.
if that's inside the rock, that looks pretty cozy.
1 or 2 rooms. Just a regular door on the outside.
Yeah, looks like it. Yeah, it's just like a little dugout. They made it look pretty cozy. It's nothing too crazy. His roof is a rock. Home of Frank Kritzer. And looking into that rock some more, it's, the local native, the natives in that area believed that space was like an important energy nexus. There's some people who seem to believe that it's a focal point for Earth energies. So it seems like this site, long before he supposedly was given instruction of how to build the Integratron from the people from Venus, seems like this site was home to a lot of just weird, odd happenings, for the natives to believe that it was a center for energy, a focal point of some sorts. So it makes me wonder: is that why the rock is there? Is that why he sought that place out? They were down there meditating, so he seemed to understand the spiritual significance of the place as well. And while we're on that topic, I do want to, and I was talking to you about this earlier, but I do find it just incredibly fascinating that these people who claim to have been big UFOologists or big into UFOs, when you look at the practical examples of what they claim they experience when they talk to these non-humans, it always involves not as much science as I would expect. It involves a whole lot of mysticism. It involves, people meditating under a rock at some spot the Native Americans feel is holy. Just doesn't seem to really mesh well with the technological view or concept of aliens and other life that I think it's pushed in our culture most of the time. That doesn't seem to mesh with the practical experience these people seem to have, getting contact from other intelligences while meditating or doing something more spiritual in nature.
Yeah. They say a lot of the Native Americans had contact in some form or another to their gods, and which could be the aliens or interdimensional creatures we talk about. And a lot of them use ritual magic, or I guess unproven science, we could call it, to contact these entities. There's a lot on the internet that shows that the Native Americans had the knowledge to do that. Maybe they still do, and they don't choose to share it with us. But I find it really interesting that they all come back to the same thing. It's some sort of ritual and maybe some sort of consumption that they take to better be aligned with their deities.
To get into contact with them.
Yeah.
Later on, as we get into some of our other topics, what you just said makes me think about that more too, of the ritual, the process in which they would go about getting themselves into different mental states. Once we get to our ancient and megalithic structures and their science of sound, like we were talking about last week, I'd like to touch on that one some more, because did a little bit more reading, and it seems there's a whole field of study just into archaeoacoustics and the science of trying to figure out how much the ancients understood what they were doing when it comes to sound and their architecture, and did they encode that in there. One interesting thing I found is there appears to be a set frequency that a lot of these megalithic structures seem to be designed to what's the word I'm looking for? Not to. It's not going to make the frequency, but it's making the right conditions. So if a person comes in and they hit that frequency, that's the resonant frequency for that room. It was 110 hertz from a male voice, and when that sound comes out of a male voice at that frequency in a lot of these ancient megalithic temples, they have measured that it changes our brain waves. It changes the way humans think. And just being exposed to it, even if you're not the one making the sound, just being exposed to it puts you in an altered state of consciousness.
What does 110 hertz sound like, I wonder?
The one study I found on it, they had gone into, I want to say, some spot in Egypt. I have to go back to pull this up, and they were essentially, they found that, hey, a male voice right there at that frequency would cause others exposed to it to, like, their brain waves shift. And that's what they're using to measure and say, hey, you're now in an altered state of consciousness just from being exposed to this. It's changed how your brain waves are operating, or how they're coming out. So at least in ways we can measure, it seems to. Yeah, ancient architectural acoustic resonance patterns and regional brain activity. They've been looking into this for a while. I found this paper from this guy who is an associate director at the UCLA Laboratory of Brain Behavior and Pharmacology. And it's from 2008.
So did they run tests on that specific frequency, or just a bunch of...
So I guess they run them on multiple frequencies, but so just the short summary, this previous archaeoacoustic investigations of prehistoric megalithic structures have identified acoustic resonances at frequencies of 95 to 120 hertz, particularly near 110 through 112 hertz, all representing pitches in the human vocal range. These chambers may have served as centers for social or spiritual events, and the resonance of the human cavities might have been intended to support human ritual chanting. We evaluated the possibility that tones at these frequencies might specifically alter regional brain activity. In a pilot project, 30 healthy adults listened to tones at 90, 100, 110, 120, and 130 hertz, while brain activity was monitored with that one's a tough one. I was just going to say an EEG.
Electroencephalography.
Yeah.
That was tough.
An EEG machine activity in the left temporal region was found to be significantly lower at 110 hertz than at other frequencies. Additionally, the pattern of asymmetric activity over the prefrontal cortex shifted from one of higher activity on the left at most frequencies to right-sided dominance at 110 hertz. These findings are compatible with relative deactivation of language centers and a shift in prefrontal activity that may be related to emotional processing. These intriguing pilot findings suggest that the acoustic properties of ancient structures may influence human brain function and suggest that a wider study of these interactions should be undertaken.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. When was this written?
This is from 2008.
Yeah.
So looks like academia has been looking into this for some time. The fact that I've never heard ancient peoples or ancient constructions discussed in this sort of way or with this level of sophistication when it's obvious, if you just barely scratch the surface looking at these things, it's like clearly these people were very, very sophisticated. And, I feel like my entire life when I am shown ancient people, especially when it comes to in art and movies and that sort of thing, when they show us ancient people, they make them out to be idiots, always just idiots who just didn't understand the world around them, so believed in a bunch of craziness.
From a mathematical point of view or a musician point of view, 110 hertz is octave 2, the note A. So if you know anything about music, you've got notes A, B, C, D, all the way up to G, sharps and flats, so half steps in between. So it's actually, it's the note A in the second octave.
What is this? I want to hear what this sounds like.
Two octaves below pitch standard. 110 hertz. I feel calmer already.
Right? I can notice like there is and maybe I don't know if that's was that all in our heads because we're thinking about it, but I definitely feel like even just hearing that, it's like you could feel the sound just barely in your body. But there's absolutely no way the people who built these ancient megalithic structures didn't know what they were doing when building this. There's no way. And they had to be very specific in choosing what type of stone, the design of the stone. Already we're blown away with how they could have possibly cut and moved the stone, but to add in the other element of these stones are chosen for their acoustic properties.
Yeah, the resonance.
So they can get the desired effect on human consciousness when sending people in?
Do you think there was a scientist that was testing the resonance of different types of sedimentary rock?
Well, they had to know it. Yeah,
it had to have been tribal knowledge of some sort.
Yeah.
So what else do we know? What about like Gregorian monk chants and,
I'm pretty sure almost every major religion, they have their chants. The Buddhist monks do the same thing where they, and hey, I'm sure that's probably the real root of that. It is causing the listeners and the individual doing the chant to enter into an altered state of consciousness. Is that key to or is it to communicating with non-human life forms, or does that make it more likely when we can shift our brain activity to operating on a different frequency there?
Yeah, I think it would make you more open to receiving whatever energy is happening.
Or maybe to even to make our awareness that we can even see it. There's so much that goes on around us that we aren't aware of. There's all the light that passes right by us that we can't see. Or I saw a cool thing earlier this week that some company in China has made these new contact lenses that will allow people to see in the dark and to see what is that? There's a certain type of ray that our eyes can't see.
Infrared?
Yeah. The contact lenses are going to allow humans to be able to see infrared light.
Huh.
And so I use that just to say as an example of like, okay, we now have this new creation, these new contact lenses that are going to allow us to see things that we couldn't see before. Some of the claims out there for these contact lenses are claiming that the people who have tested them, they're seeing creatures with long fingers and glowing eyes, and it's freaking them out, you know. And so they claim
Things that go bump in the night.
that's what, yeah, they're claiming they're seeing creatures that you can't see without wearing, the lenses that let you see infrared light. Who knows if that's true or not? It's convenient to come out and say that while, this isn't pushed out to the public at large. But theoretically, if there was something out there that existed on a spectrum just outside of our awareness, maybe these chants and these structures being built to resonate for certain frequencies at certain sounds, maybe the purpose of them is to open up one's awareness to be able to communicate with beings that are already there. Then the other part of this with the science of it that always pops in my head is how much of the science is actually lost and how much of it is being hidden. Because if sound and frequency have such powerful effects on humanity, I think we talked about this in a previous episode, we got a lot of frequencies being blasted into the air all around us. How many of, how much of the stuff being blasted into our environment is having an effect on the way we think and live and feel without us even knowing it, and then is that something that's really pulling the strings behind geopolitics? I saw an interesting article that I believe I mentioned to you earlier in the week. There was a claim from a Ukrainian scientist back in the early 2000s. He claimed to have found pyramids in Crimea. Pyramids in a straight line, lined up almost like they're lined up in down in Egypt on the Giza Plateau, and you can't find hardly much of anything out there about it online except for the fact that the guy claimed it. He claimed them to be so very old, so the claim's definitely there, but the place has been pretty much at war ever since.
That's not the one in Serbia we're talking about.
No, not the one in Serbia. These are supposed to be pyramids in Ukraine that this guy Vitaly Gokh, Gokh, reportedly discovered, and he was quoted doing an interview with ICTV, and he said there is a resonance chamber of so-called Sphinx. So he claimed to have also found a resonance chamber when finding these pyramids, and said he says the pyramids were built in the era of the dinosaurs. So, which I thought that was just
how would he know that?
Right, was an outrageous claim. And he's claiming it just from how far down it is and how old it appears to be based on, I guess the sediments and things they tested around that area. But even if it's, I highly doubt something could be that old if he's saying it's millions of years old. But he also claimed to have found a small mummy there that doesn't really fit the dimensions of a human. So let me go back to this. They claimed to have found like a small body in there, and that seems to go with what he was saying of, hey, it's old as the dinosaurs.
Vitaly Gokh.
Go back. I mean, if you try to search news or anything with his name, or even Ukrainian pyramids or Crimean pyramids, you get almost nothing.
Crimean prehistoric pyramid. There's 37 on the Crimean Peninsula.
All kind of lined up? Some buried and submerged?
Yeah, I think that's what you were looking at a minute ago. Yeah.
But and I mean, yeah. So I guess you can find a small amount, but the stuff that I did find, it's just not what I expect to see if we're talking about an actual archaeological find. You would expect there to be some more serious looking.
I feel like that happens a lot. Like people discover
And then it just goes
archaeology,
quiet.
and yeah, it's like
It's almost an
give it a little blip, and that's it.
There's so little on the internet about it that it almost tells me that that's the it's
That it
more
was
odd than
suppressed
anything
more
else.
yeah.
Yeah, because I could search any random thing and find all sorts of search results that might not be related to it. But then you search these certain topics, and it's like they've intentionally shortened the list. So instead of going the route of like, oh, he said Wyoming cutting board, let's give them every instance I can find that online. Instead, it's like search out all those entries that have the keywords they're looking for and delete them.
Yeah, I feel like when you get 2 results for something, you're onto something.
Yes, it doesn't
Somebody
want you to find
decided
anymore.
that they don't want access to.
So these pyramids in Crimea, they're supposedly lined up sort of along the coast. Let's see, Valley of Ghost. I guess that's right along the same area. But yeah, they're supposedly pyramids found in the Crimean Peninsula. Some of them buried. Some of them, 37 total, it says. Some of them submerged, supposedly. And the guy who found it, of course, said that they were used to produce some sort of energy during a specific period of the year. And given the war and everything over there, and not just given the war, given the focus on Crimea in this war, because the Russians and the Ukrainians, they've kind of gone back and forth with the land they control, but the one piece of the land that has been for a piece of every single negotiation has been Crimea, where the Ukrainians want it back and the Russians don't want to give it away. And I've heard the story of, well, that's a historic Russian naval base, and it makes a lot of sense. But to me, it also makes just as much sense that as long as you have access to the Black Sea, you have your port, and it doesn't have to be Crimea. It could be somewhere else.
Maybe that's part of the war over there, is they're fighting over actual architecture, ancient architecture that's there, and none of us know about because it's been suppressed.
Ancient knowledge there.
Yeah. Maybe they're fighting over a Stargate.
Could be. I heard the claim long ago that it's no accident that the part of the world that supposedly has most of human history, the Middle East, has been in a constant state of war. Our entire lives. They're in North Africa, so any serious archaeological study is impossible as long as they're in such a dangerous state. So it's like, is that intentionally done to make sure no one looks into those sites, or is it just the wounds of humanity run deeper there than anywhere else? So, and then we had some other fun pyramids too in our pyramid search this week.
Oh yeah, this one we found at the same time, independently somehow. Pyramid in Serbia called Rtanj, spelled Rtanj. Some of my research showed they do a pyramid festival there. That's pretty freaking awesome. And it looks like a mountain, but more like a pyramid that has been covered over the years and eons with more dirt and soil and seed. But the lines are so straight it has to be a pyramid. And there's healing powers of the nearby bodies of water. There's healing herbs that grow there. There's also a frozen pit that's on the side of the mountain somehow. There's like a cave system. And supposedly scientists had gone in there and measured the temperature and whatnot in there. And they found it was abnormally low for being underground. Like it was colder than it should have been.
Which should be warmer under the ground in a cold spot.
Well, it
right?
should just be more of a steady temperature range.
Mm-hmm.
And it shouldn't be as cold as what they measured. They were expecting a higher temperature.
You think something in the cave system is producing a cooling effect? Or could the pyramid itself be producing a cooling effect?
Maybe the pyramid itself is producing a cooling effect. The mysterious veil which looms over Rtanj is still the reason for many scientific arguments. Some say that this mountain is actually an ancient pyramid. The others think that it was created by nature, and the third opinion is that it is a work of a higher power. From the plains of eastern Serbia, this mountain, which demands admiration, rises very suddenly. This at least we know for certain. Rare healing herbs grow on the perfectly shaped mountainside, and its hidden inside parts are decorated by numerous underground streams, caves, and caverns. There's claims that they felt some mysterious energy, that the air smells differently, and that the nature looks unreal. Some even claim that they have been cured by the famous Rtanj tea. Others have found their peace there.
You know, I wonder if, given the shape of it, I think it's definitely something buried underneath the earth there. But just given what we were talking about earlier, if there is something to just the shape of a pyramid, if it causes some sort of energetic disturbance or some sort of shift in the energy around it here on Earth, then theoretically, if you have a mountain or large pieces of stone arranged in the same pattern, could it be given the natural effects, or just if it was just a natural,
Could produce the same thing naturally,
right? Produce the same effects of whatever the wonders of this design are. You know, there definitely seems to be just something to this design that we're missing, or has been intentionally hidden from us. You know, I found this a pyramid. This one's not so much a big grand pyramid like the others, but a pyramid-shaped burial site in Ukraine that used to be just the lands of Ukrainian nobility prior to the Russian Revolution, and it's a crypt. So, but they built it in the style of an Egyptian pyramid, and they built it in the 1800s. The Zakrevskis, and when reading about this, looking at it, there's nothing really too special about it. Not on the appearance, at least. It looks like it's made with regular bricks from the 1800s. Looks rather run down and ruddy to me. I see grass growing in front of the door to it. What I'm assuming is one of the big doors. Those look more like windows. But apparently, when the Russian Revolution happened, these Ukrainian nobles lost their land. They move on. They're outside of the country. I guess most of the descendants live in Britain now. And the family has continued to pay to try to have the land restored and try to keep it. But the town acquired the land. And in the 1980s, the town wanted to build a visitor center. So this crypt in the shape of an Egyptian pyramid didn't fit their design view. So they said, okay, we're going to tear it down. And it's just a family crypt. It has from what I read about it, it was supposedly built in the style of an Egyptian pyramid, designed or laid out on the cardinal directions, so its corners match up with the directions, and built with a corresponding underground as well. Which, just even in describing it that way, I was like, interesting, because I thought most of what we know about the pyramids underground we've learned more recently. So to say that it's supposed to have an underground tells me that maybe they knew more. But in the 1980s, they come through with bulldozers, and they couldn't tear it down. They said the bulldozers and the other equipment malfunction due to the crypt's sturdy design. And I mean, looking at this thing, it is nothing too impressive that would make one think that it could beat a bulldozer.
No, it looks like just a little like a stone chimney almost.
And so when reading that, it makes me wonder, what could cause the bulldozer and the other construction equipment to malfunction and break down and have errors when it gets near this thing to try to destroy it?
From the 80s when it was all analog still.
1980s. Yeah.
There wasn't anything digital about it.
No. I mean, of course, it still has wires, but not digital like in today's time. And the
diesel engine, once it starts running, it's running.
Right. And in the night, it would be one thing if I read about it and it said, hey, in the 1800s, the locals are trying to tear it down and said, hey, it's too much trouble. Okay, sure. But 1980s, you bring a bulldozer and construction equipment, you should be able to knock this thing out.
Yeah.
And they just left it standing. So I would also say, hey, they probably didn't try too hard to take this thing down, because I would imagine you throw some dynamite in there, you could probably blow this thing up. But to me, that adds to the curiosity of the story as well. You were coming through to destroy it, and now we got articles saying that the bulldozer and equipment malfunction, and so you just decided to leave it there. And now it's still there to this day. And the family who used to own the land, they haven't, lived there in over 100 years. Now they live in Britain, and they're doing well for themselves. From what I read, some of them have made it to become Lord President of the Privy Council and leader of the Liberal Democratic Party in Britain. So these are, they did well for themselves when they fled after the Russian Revolution. But they continue to pay toward maintaining the land, maintaining the crypt. And hey, maybe it's just reverence for one's ancestors and wanting to keep up the old family grave. But I think it's thought it was a rather interesting story for that one, of a weird pyramid-shaped crypt.
Yeah.
So, and then, I saw you've pulled a video showing some of the pillars in an Indian temple, kind of just, I guess, circling back to what we were talking about with sound.
Sound theory. There's some videos showing some pillars, and they look like they're built on a lathe, but the amount of cuts into this,
and
this pillar, if you put it sideways, you could turn it into if you looked at it in a two-dimensional way, it could be a sound wave.
And they do move in these temples, right? From what
I don't know if that's just doctoring a video or whatever, but
I know they have some temples over there in India where
the pillars spin.
Yeah, they spin. They look like they're columns, and you're just like, why in the world would this turn?
Part of this video goes into they were 3D printing some of these pillars to a two-dimensional stasis, or what is that sound if you do try and make a sound wave out of it? So I don't know. I found it really interesting. Thought maybe we could do some research on it, and see if anybody online has decided to go that far as to recreate what the sound might be. Yeah,
when watching it, I thought the same thing, and I wish. What I would love to, if we were somewhere out there, if we had the technology to have the dimensions of every single one of them loaded in, I'd want to see the order.
Just a whole library of.
Yeah, well, I'd want to see because I would imagine if they are meant to be a message, then the order in which the pillars are laid out has to matter, right?
You would think, yeah.
Unless you play them all at once, and I would think it's either a message or it's a melody. It's either an important tune. It makes me think of the line in that song about the Hallelujah, of just being a sound that could please even God.
Maybe it's just a phrase to unlock the portal that's ahead of you.
Could be. Or could be a sound to break down the veil of illusion over our eyes in this world. Could be a sound to open the portal right there in the temple. Bam,
Yeah.
here's your Stargate.
Yeah.
But I had never thought about that when looking at a column, but it makes sense. What they were pretty much just saying is, we look at an audio recording, the way it shows the sound as a collection of lines and bars, some expanded out more than
On
others.
a two-dimensional plane, but if you turn that into a three-dimensional plane, it'd be
Like a column.
like a column or a cylinder almost.
And these columns, for listeners, you guys can't see it, but these aren't perfectly smooth, straight down columns. They have all sorts of grooves where they come out for, further than other spots and go back in. So almost makes it look like it's, like you're saying, if you could just look at that image on a two-dimensional level and put it right there in your phone, it's like, oh, it's an audio recording.
like a post on a banister for like a staircase or something, something intricate like that. Yeah, I wonder if there's more research on that. We'll have to look into that.
Well, we know that they definitely knew what they were doing when they were building these temples when it comes to sound. There's other temples in India where they use different stones to make the different columns, and each stone makes a distinct sound when touched by a human hand. So you just go over and pat it, and it reverberates throughout the building. And it's like that. You have to be so intentional to pick a stone that's going to make us, and then to get the right depth on the stone when putting it in, so it gives the desired sound when touched by a human hand.
Right.
And then they've just some of the other things human researchers have found in these ancient sites seems to definitely confirm the idea that ancient people had an incredible understanding of acoustic science and sound. And not only that, they had an understanding of how it affects human consciousness. So you can look at some of the temples in South America where, it's acoustically designed already. And then they found conch shells or different shells in these spots, or the Mayan, the Aztec death whistle, if you will. All of these things show that they were acutely aware of how acoustics and all these audible phenomena could affect human perception.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard a recording of the Aztec death whistle?
Oh, it sounds terrifying.
Yeah. Terrifying.
But then you imagine that like in a temple, that sort of thing. So it's like, yeah, what was going on then? And is it really just all this focus just so when they gather the people together, everyone can hear them? It seems like that's a bit extreme just to get people to hear you.
So the temple that we saw those columns is Kopeshwar Temple of Maharashtra. It boasts like 126 different pillars. Took about 500 years to build. Its construction the rocks were transported from a river during floods. It's the only temple in the world with a Vishnu ling and a Shiv ling. I'm not sure what all that means. Something to do with Hinduism. It's the only Shiva temple in the world without Nandi. The temple complex boasts a total of 126 pillars. 12 pillars of the Swarg Mandap symbolize the 12 zodiac signs. All right, what else we got here?
Let's see. Well, we got sticking to talking about things found in temples. Are the Mayan codices that describe this being the fifth existence on Earth, or the fifth cycle?
Yeah, supposedly we are the fifth existence on Earth as far as they can track in the Mayan codices. While reading ancient Mayan manuscripts, researchers discovered that one of the Mayan codices describes the history of 3 worlds that once existed on Earth. Sounds incredible, but the Mayan codices are the most detailed ancient manuscripts in existence. It not only discusses the cosmic past of the gods, but also the various rituals of civilization, as well as discoveries and advances in astronomy. What does our local AI say?
That's what I'm checking now. Yep, so Mayan cosmology, we're living in the 5th age of the sun of human existence. And the idea, not unique to the Mayans, appears across several Mesoamerican traditions, especially the Aztec. The first people made of mud, this is according to the Maya, they crumbled and dissolved. The second people made of wood, they were stiff, had no souls or memory, and were destroyed by a flood and attacks from their own tools and animals. Third version, not fully described, but sometimes tied to different cycles of cosmic time. Fourth people made of maize dough. These became the ancestors of modern humans. The Mayan didn't number the exact cycles the way as the Aztec five sun story, but later. Okay, well, how do the Aztecs tell it? Let's see. Well, of course, this goes right into their calendar having an end of the cycle date, which that makes me think of something we talked about briefly earlier, which is there's this CIA document that's been declassified. It's a book that somebody wrote. And for some reason, the CIA classified it a long time ago. And it's called the Adam and Eve Apocalypse, or the Adam and Eve story. Yes, because the CIA classified this book a long time ago, and only recently have they released it, the Adam and Eve story. And you can go to CIA.gov and read the declassified version, where they've taken most of it out. Or
they redacted it?
No,
still?
Most of it's not redacted. Most of it's released. There's still some in there redacted. But what it basically tells the story of is ever so often, I want to say it was roughly once every 2,160 years or something like that, there is a massive cataclysm that is global in nature, and it wipes out most of humanity, leaving only a small few humans left. And from that small group of humans, humanity starts over, and civilization is completely obliterated because most people are killed. And I mean, it describes it as just a crazy disaster, Yellowstone going off, or tidal waves coming in that would go so far as to sweep over the Rocky Mountains, just an incredible disaster. And I mean, it uses the language of saying, as it was in the days of Adam, as it was in the days of Noah, and many others, and so shall it be again and again and again. So, when hearing that about the Maya and the Aztec and these ancient civilizations that seem to have these stories of a periodic, cyclical destruction and cataclysm that they describe as end of the world style, it makes me think. I wonder if if this Adam and Eve story is right.
Why was it classified then?
Well, that's great. I feel like
they just grabbed it and said, "Well, let's make sure we check this out before we let the public know about it."
Well, they kept it classified from the 1960s until here in the 2000s. Well, I want to say it was after 2010 that they finally declassified it.
Yeah, usually about 50 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's usually just the regular lifetime of a classified document.
But with the CIA, I feel like nothing can be trusted, even when it comes to the stuff they classify. As is the point of classifying and then releasing this? Is the point of it to make us look? You never can truly know the motivations of an organization built on deception.
That's fair. Yeah.
Because at all times they have a group of people sitting around in a room trying to figure out how to deceive and trick people. So
you hide it in plain sight.
Right. And so, but yeah, it's got chapters of the next cataclysm, the great floods, the story, the event, Genesis, and conclusion. So, but yeah, like Noah's 6,500 years ago, like Adam and Eve's 11,500 years ago, this too will come to pass.
Okay, well, when is the next cataclysm then? According to this document.
Let's see.
You said 2,160. That's already passed.
I think according to that document, we're supposed to be approaching it or nearing it. And I think the speculation with all of this has been that the elite don't exactly know, because if what they're claiming is true in what happens, it would be incredibly difficult to play back the clock and figure out exactly when the last one happened. You would only be able to figure out general time period.
Sure.
So yeah, from what everything I've ever seen online for this, of course, it's doomsday. So they always say, "Oh, it's any minute now."
Yeah.
Any day now.
The rapture is upon us.
Yeah. Let's see. Noah, what was his name? Chan Thomas.
Noah, how'd you get from Noah to Chan?
I was reading where it says that Noah's right there, and just go past it as I scrolled past it.
So who wrote this document? Does it say?
The book?
The Cataclysm, the next Cataclysm. Who wrote that document? The classified document.
Chan Thomas. He's the author.
Chan Thomas.
Yeah, he's the author. Oh, approximately every 7,000 years.
Okay.
Upheavals. He identifies 2 previous major events, 11,500 years ago, which he associates with Genesis' Adam and Eve story, then another roughly 6,500 years linked to Noah's flood. For those intervals, he extrapolates a recurring cataclysm counting forward from the 6,500 year ago event, places the next one around 500 years ago, which clearly did not happen. Unless it did happen. Unless our history has been falsified.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest next was, what are some of the theories? Let's rehash some of those theories. Like,
there's
didn't we claim that possibly the Vatican has added 1,000 years to our story?
Yeah. The history's been entirely falsified, you know?
Yeah, like it's been manufactured.
I definitely think they've manufactured history when it comes to a lot of our buildings that were supposedly built during the 1700s, these Greco-Roman revival buildings that are all over the world. I'm a believer in that conspiracy, and that would seem to fit this, you know. The U.S. Capitol is a great example of one. We threw it up in no time. It's a huge construction, marble, stone, all these really, really heavy stones. They claim to have drained a swamp and built it. You can look at the construction today to see how far down they go. So you have to ask yourself, were people in the 1700s digging far down?
How far they show us they went down. I'm sure it goes much farther than that.
Right. Well, just saying with how far they show us, it's an incredible depth to think that the people in the late 1700s were digging that far down and hauling in slabs of marble and stone that weigh tons to get them in place. And then, and they built it all in less than 10 years it took them to build it. And then within 20 years of the Capitol being built, they spent the equivalent of, I want to say it's like nearly $1 billion in today's money, because one wing of the Capitol was showing advanced signs of aging and deterioration. And we're talking about a building made of stone and marble. They just built it. It's not even been standing for 30 years, And in 20 years' time, they have to pump in almost as much money as they spent to build it originally, because it's showing advanced signs of deterioration. It's just like, I think you guys found an old building and you renovated it and you fixed it up. And I think they've done that with a lot of these old buildings. But yeah, so according to him, the next one around 500 years ago, which clearly did not happen, if instead counted from the older 11,500 year ago event, the next one would fall about 3,500 years into the future, around the year 5,525 CE. So why would the CIA classify this book if the book is claiming that disaster is coming in the year 5,525? How could that be a threat to national security?
Maybe they know of another catastrophe that happened about 5,000 years ago.
Or
so they're thinking we're due.
Yeah.
Like a volcano.
Yeah. Well, no, not 5,000 years ago. I'm saying he's saying if we go by the time scale of they happen every 11,500 years, it's not due until 5,525. So his book alleges that around 500 years ago, which would have been when? Let's see, that's the 1960s.
He says 500 years ago we were due.
That's when the last one should have been. Around 500 years ago. So if we'll say
what's the tolerance?
1960. Well, what do you know? Right around the time of the discovery of the New World is when it should have happened. The mid 1400s. In our history, 1492 is when it's discovered, but the late 1400s is everything leading up to it. So, did something happen? And maybe that's the threat that the CIA perceived from this book of, it's not what it is claiming is going to happen, it's what it claims has already happened, and how that would throw a wrench into world history.
Well, I think eventually they're going to run out of room to lie.
I'll give you there's some,
or hide, or whatever it is that's going on.
Well, I agree. I hope so. I hope in our lifetime too. If you go back to around that time period too, there is some very just weird stuff that seems to support the conspiracy that they added 1,000 years to the timeline. So, like Columbus's journal, for example, it's in the Spanish Museum. You can read it online. You can pull it up and read it online, and he writes the year in his journal at several locations, but he leaves the one out. And people have said, well, maybe that's just how he wrote it to shorten it. Like when we write the year, we write 25 sometimes. But it's like, did he really write 473? Was he really? And he wrote it at many locations in his journal. In the very beginning of the journal, he writes the year with what appears to be a 1 in front of it, but some scholars say it's not a 1. They say it's a J, and that back then people would date things as in the year of our Lord Jesus Christ, and so they would put a J, and the J looks distinctive from the ones when you look at something's writing. And in his journal, the letter J is written in places, and it does match the original 1 in the very beginning. And it's important to note that in his journal, he only writes the year with 4 digits in the very beginning. And everywhere else throughout his journal, he writes it with 3 digits. And his journal's still viewable through the Spanish Museum online.
I think that's quite precarious.
Right? I would agree. To me, it seems like Columbus thought he was living in the 400s.
Maybe he actually was. Maybe Columbus isn't. Maybe he's smarter than everybody made him out to be. Maybe he wasn't just this dumb Spanish explorer that stumbled across North America or Central America, I suppose.
Well, in his journal, the task he was given by Queen Isabel and King Ferdinand was to come over and find the lost city of Jerusalem. Which make sense. That's what it's written in his journal. His task was to find and locate the lost city of Jerusalem and Solomon's temple. So, and when I think about that, it just tells me that the narrative I've been taught about whatever was happening back then is a complete falsehood.
How did they lose it?
Well, you would think, right? Because we think to ourselves, Jerusalem's right over there.
Atlantis and it fell into the sea?
Well, because to us, we think Jerusalem's right over there.
It's the other direction.
But then I ask myself, what if the place we know as Jerusalem today, what if that's not it? What if that is, like there's London, and then there's New London, there's Paris, Texas, there's all these places.
Yeah.
What if the people who are running the world, not that long ago, people were mostly illiterate. Most people couldn't even read.
Okay.
So what if they mixed the names of places up on the map?
Maybe.
Like there's sites in America, one in Tennessee that I read about, a wall older than, like it's about as old as Babylon, and they found ancient Hebrew writing on a wall in Tennessee. Another one in Texas, and it's Proto-Hebrew writing. So which doesn't fit the historical narrative of nobody speaking or writing in Hebrew was supposed to be over here. They found tablets in the northeast, almost as old as Sumeria, that have the Ten Commandments written on them. And so it's like, well, what if they mixed up the map? And what if this is the old world and that's the new world?
Maybe it used to be the old world.
Right. Maybe if
Maybe
everything
it's that
got all mixed
concept
up
you were talking about where the North Pole is the true center.
and it shifts.
And it shifts periodically to where it shifts enough that the climate actually changes in these areas.
It could. I think one thing for sure though, it seems that, and it's not so crazy to say. Of course, we know the winners write history. The winners write the history, and they write it in a way that makes them look good. So, just how much can we trust the historical narrative we have, and how much have they written in stuff that didn't happen just to make the winners look good?
Right. Well, guys, thanks for listening. You can make donations at Denver Theory Lab on PayPal at Denver Theory Lab. And you can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, or email us at denvertheorylab@gmail.com. Please send any questions, comments, or topic suggestions.
Till next time.